Now the healing process begins. That's how the Los Angeles Clippers responded to news that team owner Donald Sterling was banned for life from the NBA after admitting he made racist remarks that were caught on tape. The league's commissioner says he will also urge the 29 other owners to vote to force Sterling to sell the team, a team he's owned for more than 30 years. NBA Hall of Famer Isaiah Thomas had this to say about the commissioner's actions and the meaning both on and off the court.
This is a game where we transport our culture, we transport our values, and this is a game that we introduce kids to at a very young age. So this goes way beyond points, rebounds, and assists. This really talks about societal values, your basketball values, your team values, the way you work with one another, the way you get along with one another, on and off the playing field. So Commissioner Silver did a great job yesterday in just exemplifying what leadership can and should be in this country.
With me now to talk about all of this, Jerry Stackhouse, NBA TV analyst and host for Sirius XM NBA Radio and a former NBA All-Star. Brian Claypool, a Clippers season ticket holder and criminal defense attorney. Dominique Wilkins, vice president of basketball operations for the Atlanta Hawks and members of the Basketball Hall of Fame. And Jamel Hill, ESPN columnist and sideline reporter. Welcome to all of you.
Hi, Carol.
Hi, I'm glad you're all here. Jerry, I want to start with you. Kudos to Commissioner Silver. I mean, nobody seems to have any problem at all with the action he took.
Absolutely. I mean, everybody's ecstatic and excited about the decision and thought that he came down with a heavy hammer. I mean, everyone feels there's no place in our league for those type of, sentiments from anybody, from an owner, a player. And I think that he came down as hard as he could, but I think the hard part is still ahead of us. I mean, actually, removing this guy from ownership is going to be a little bit tougher than what has happened in these first 3 days.
We're going to talk about that and get right into it in just a second. I wanted to ask Jamel, though, do you think that Silver's actions healed all wounds?
No, I wouldn't say that they healed all wounds because I think that would be sort of trivializing the problem. I do think that we still have to examine why it took this to get Donald Sterling removed in the first place. He's a career racist. I mean, his track record is well established as some of the things he's done, particularly some of the racial and housing discrimination suits that he settled in addition to the sexual harassment suits. So I guess in one way it's good because the stench is finally removed, but I think the NBA Board of Governors, Commissioner Adam Silver, as he goes forward, he needs to hold the owners to the highest level of characters, just as he does the players.
So, Dominique, I'll pose this question to you. Three-quarters of the owners have to vote to push this guy out of ownership of an NBA team. Do you think that's possible?
I think it's very possible, and I think it's the right thing to do because, again, like she said, he has a track record of racism. And so I think the owners should come together because ultimately it's on them what they ultimately do with this situation. So I think all the owners will vote to have him removed, and I think it's the right thing to do.
Dominique, do you agree? Can Dominic hear me? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm just like, I'm so discombobulated. But it's okay. I apologize.
It's okay.
Brian Claypool, that's who I was asking. Sorry.
Right.
I was just asking you. Do you think
Dominique and I resemble each other.
No,
so
you
I
don't
see
at
how
all.
you're
You do
confused.
not at all.
I'm kidding. Anyway, hey, Carol, can I comment on something Jamel said? I think she hit the nail on the head. I think this is a wake-up call for our country. And I think one area that Adam Silver fell short of is investigating why it took 10 years to eliminate Donald Sterling. And I think what the NBA has to do is institute some kind of independent review of why it took so long to get rid of Donald Sterling, and then implement preventative measures to make sure this doesn't happen again. For example, maybe an anonymous hotline, and a committee that will investigate all owners, not only in the NBA, but in all professional sports. So I think he fell short. We've got to do more, and let's use this as an opportunity to galvanize eliminating racism in our society.
Okay, so let's talk about like throwing Donald Sterling completely out of the league. And Dominique, I'll ask you this question. You're an attorney, right? So let's say that the owners say, you know, Mr. Sterling said these heinous things and he deserves to be thrown out. What happens when the next owner says something a little less heinous? Like, who's to decide what's bad enough to eliminate someone from owning an NBA team?
Well, I think, again, the question was posed, you know, this is a wake-up call for the country that we're not going to tolerate these type of actions. So, unfortunately, in life, it takes a dramatic act for people to make change. And unfortunately, with change, sometimes comes consequences. And so you got to prepare yourself for that. But at the same time, something like this needed to happen to wake up this country, to say, hey, look, enough is enough. You know, let's move past all of this nonsense, because bigotry and racism in this country, it should not still exist on this level. And when you bring it into the workplace, sports is just a very minute part of this. You're talking about a national problem. And so how do you get rid of or combat bigotry and racism? Be successful, be above it, do or play or be who you are. Don't let someone's ignorance dictates who you become.
Right, and there should be serious consequences. But
Yes.
and
Yeah.
Jerry, I'll pose this question to you. Okay, so what Mr. Sterling did, it wasn't illegal. He said something really heinous, but nothing about it was illegal. So should he lose his business over that?
Well, I mean, that's the slippery slope that everybody's talking about right now. And I think that, you know, from the standpoint of, and he talked about, even on his tape recording, he talked about that it's bigger than me. I mean, it's part of a society, a bigger society. And what society is he talking about? Is he talking about, you know, other people that share his views and share his, who he has a dialogue with in the league? I mean, are we going to sit here and think that he's the only one that maybe has this view? We hope so, and hope that we've eliminated him, but the law of averages and probabilities said that's not the case, that there's other people that share this view with him, and the fact that he records all of his tapes, does he have some dialogue with someone else saying the same thing?
What I'm really asking, Jamel, is there are First Amendment rights in this country, and you have the right to say what you want, right? So if that's true, why should you lose your business over heinous comments?
You got to remember, speech is free, but consequences are not. And I liken this to if, say, you were a franchise owner of a McDonald's. Why, yes, it is your business, but you still represent McDonald's as a brand. I represent ESPN as a brand as soon as I wake up. You represent CNN as a brand as soon as you wake up. And you know that if any of us were in this situation where these kinds of words or thoughts were exposed to the greater public, we would probably be terminated by our employer. That's the way it works. That's life. That's how it goes, is that he was representing the NBA and he was in a position to influence. That's the part we forget about this. It's not that he just thought these things. We saw from the previous allegations and the racial housing discrimination lawsuits he settled that he was putting his thoughts, views, and opinions into action by making people's lives miserable. That's why he's no longer a part of the NBA.
I totally get it. So Brian, let's go back to the beginning. If the NBA knew all these things about Mr. Sterling, why did it allow him to become an owner in the first place? Isn't it a little late?
Well, it's not too late, Carol. Again, this is a wake-up call, and there are some legal standards that support Donald Sterling being removed. He signed on to a constitution with the NBA that says it has a long termination paragraph in the Constitution, Carol, and it says that if you do something that is morally repugnant or that doesn't uphold the reputation of the NBA, then you can be removed. That's the legal part. Morally, what could be worse in our society than what he did? And I will tell you that unless he is removed by these owners, it's an endorsement of racism in our society. And I think there's no choice here. There would be no Los Angeles Clippers, Carol, if he remains owner. And think of this, if your boss at CNN said, I don't like white females as my anchor, do you think your boss would be working tomorrow?
But I'm not talking about my boss. I'm talking about the owner of a company. And that's different.
But he signed on. Carol, he signed on. he signed on to a franchising agreement with the NBA that says if you do something that's not consistent with the values of the NBA, you can be removed as an owner. It's not much unlike an arbitration clause where we go to the doctor, we sign an agreement. If the doctor says something wrong, we can't have a jury trial. Those have been upheld as well.
All right, and I get all of this, but it just illustrates how hard the road's going to be from here. Thanks to all of you, Jerry Stackhouse, Brian Claypool, Dominique Wilkins, and Jamel Hill, who